Hello, welcome to I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before podcast. I'm Michelle Hoddle. I'm the host, and these are my guests, Laurinda Spear of Arquitectonica and Cecilia Ramos of Lutron. We're here at the KBIZ podcast studio in Orlando, and AJ Madison Pro is the industry's trusted appliance source for professionals who need fast, reliable access to top brands. Backed by nationwide shipping and a powerful logistics network, delivery is precise and dependable. With over 150 premium brands, including Sub-Zero, Wolf, Cove, Miele, Viking, Thermador, Gaggenau, and more, AJ Madison Pro is your single choice for appliance specification. Qualified builders and architects can save up to 15% on luxury brands through exclusive trade programs with registration handled for you. AJ Madison Pro. Smarter appliance sourcing starts at ajmadison.com/pro. So I'm here with Laurinda and Cecilia. Laurinda Spear, FAIA, PLA, lead AP, IIDA. She's the principal and founding principal of Arquitectonica and Arquitectonica Geo. Ms. Spear has been active from the beginning and has participated in the design of many projects undertaken by both firms. She studied fine arts at Brown University, received her Master of Architecture degree from Columbia University, and later a Master of Landscape Architecture from Florida International University. She has taught at Harvard and the University of Miami. Ms. Spear is interested in educating others in design excellence. She has lectured around the world, and her work has been exhibited in many prestigious museums. Laurinda has designed many of the firm's signature projects, and her designs have won over 100 design awards. Many of Ms. Spear's projects have been featured in books as well as prominent magazines and professional journals. She was also instrumental in the expansion of Arquitectonica into design fields beyond architecture and planning. She first established the interior design practice, Arquitectonica Interiors, which earned the firm its place in the Interior Design Hall of Fame. She also created the design products group, Laurinda Spear Products, which has over 150 products on the market under dozens of global brands. In 2005, Laurinda established the landscape architecture practice, Arquitectonica Geo, focusing on environmental land planning, sustainability, innovation, and landscape design. Laurinda is a fellow of the American Institute of Architects, a registered landscape architect, a member of the American Society of Landscape Architects, and a lead accredited professional. She is a recipient of the AIA Silver Medal, the Rome Prize in Architecture, and the ULI Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you, Laurinda. I think it always surprises people when they hear their bio. Cecilia E. Ramos of Lutron. Cecilia leads architecture and design at Lutron, where she drives strategy, creative direction, and design engagement globally. She holds degrees in architecture from MIT and Princeton and has traveled the world as a lighting designer for luxury brands Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, and Dior Parfums, a frequent international speaker and co-author of the book Architectural Lighting, Designing with Light and Spaces with Princeton Architectural Press, 2011. And she also has a wonderful jewelry line right now, kind of in keeping in the same vein as Laurinda, have creating products.
Once a creative, you're always creating, right?
Yes, we're always creating. So I'm going to ask Laurinda first, and then Cecilia's going to follow. So what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
I guess I remember things different buildings made different impressions on me. My best friend, when I was in elementary school, her father was an architect, a rather well-known Miami architect. And I didn't have a very palpable sense of it, but I just had an impression that there was some places seemed a whole lot better than others, you know. So as a child, I didn't, I can't really put my finger on it.
Yeah. Cecilia, what are your first recollections of
So I grew up in a family where both parents were from Spain. And so we would go back to Spain every year for Christmas to visit the family. and part of that time, and wherever we might be, involved visiting a lot of architectural significant places. And my mother's family was from Córdoba, and we would go for Christmas Mass every year in the Mosque of Córdoba, which is that beautiful, mosque turned cathedral from 700 AD, and then converted into the Catholic cathedral, I think in like 1250 or so. And it's beautiful, right? Because you have this kind of creation of space with the repetition of the arches and the colors of the red and the white, but also it's this kind of fascinating place where it's layer upon layer of history and culture intermingled into what it is today. But as a child, I think my biggest memory of it, aside from being awestruck by the grandeur of it, was how cold it was. Because you go there for Christmas Mass, there's no heating, and you just kind of suffer through it for an hour and a half. So probably a good reminder that the spaces we design should suit the human, not just in the aesthetic sense, but in the sense of how we inhabit it.
So what 3 classic buildings do you like and why?
I think I like. Well, I really loved seeing. Let's say they're all. I mean, I'm a liker and lover of all different buildings. I don't have much discrimination when it comes to liking buildings. I see the good in almost any building, truthfully. So the dumbest building can be kind of interesting to me.
You're probably a great professor then.
She gives everyone an A.
Yes.
Oh yeah, in architecture, yeah. You can do that. But 3 buildings that I really liked. I love the Couture Palace in Tokyo, or outside Tokyo. I love Villa Savoye. And the third one might be in New York City, maybe the Chrysler Building.
That's a pretty good one.
It was kind of, when I was at Columbia, we went on a field trip to the World Trade Centers, and there was something about them that was very powerful.
Yeah, for 3 buildings, I think the first building that comes to mind was probably where I cemented my career trajectory, which was at MIT, the MIT Chapel by Ira Saarinen, right? Because it's this beautiful, quiet building from the outside, but when you walk inside, it's the dance of light with materiality, and just watching it transform through time. And that made a big impression on me. And for me, that was kind of the first moment where I recognized light as a medium for design. I think, what you study at school also really shapes what you seek out. And one of the next buildings that I would reference is one that you fall in love with through images and through learning about it in school in our history classes. And then when you finally go see it, it was better than I could have imagined, which would be the John Soane House and Museum in London. And again, I think there's just a beautiful story about creating a space that is constantly changing and growing with collection, which is a reflection of self. But again, being a glutton for light, the small details of tinted glass and recreating that, warmth sun of, his grand tour through the south of Italy. I think those little moments stick with you. And then I know, Michelle, you and I have spoken about this previously as well, but my last building that kind of grounds me, or I really come back to often, was going out to Chaco Canyon for the first time in the Southwest, because again, it's kind of these very primal structures in the desert that have over time eroded, but you see the skeleton of what was there, and with beautiful forms and purpose. And I think it's also the magic of, discovering that, so to speak, because it's not an easy place to go to. But it's architecture of the land. And I think that's really special and moves me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have yet to see it, because every time I go, there's some type of rain and we can't get in to the, you can't get, because it gets washed out.
It's a hard one, all those dirt roads. I mean, you go out there and you might encounter 5 people on a visit, right? It's a national monument, but it's a difficult one. You really seek it out.
Yeah.
Have you been, Laurinda?
No.
Beautiful. Yeah.
We have to plan it
on the road trip.
Yeah, let's do a road trip. Exactly. Yeah. So what do you like about being an architect?
I like the fact that it's a very slow moving field, that you don't have to struggle to keep up with it, that you can multitask and still do perfectly well as being an architect. Even though we have, always new things on the horizon that change how you practice, it's not that quick. I find other professions like medicine or other ones, maybe finance too, are really fast paced. Architecture is not.
Yes. Yeah. Changing constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like a code is going to change tomorrow if like the market is changing.
It's interesting that that's your response, because maybe that's why I moved away from architecture. So having studied architecture and then got into the field of lighting design, and now in a role where it's supporting architects and designers. One of the things I loved about lighting design when I discovered that profession is that it was fast-paced, because
Technology's changing.
technology's changing, but also the scope of work that you're working on in a building is obviously a small fraction of what an architect works on. And so you can juggle probably 10 to 20 projects for every architect's one. And as a result, you're seeing things turn around more quickly. And I was also in the world of luxury retail, so that's super high, fast-paced. So I enjoyed that portion of it. But ultimately, I think, with a background in architecture, there's so many skill sets that can be applied to so many different parts of our profession. And I think that for me is the most rewarding part, that, whether it's public speaking or designing or thinking strategically, those skills are, valuable in any periphery of, roles or worlds that the architectural profession needs. So in some ways, it's a good job security too.
So how do you design the interiors of your projects?
Well, ideally, it's like landscape architecture and interiors all at once. Ideally. Does it really work that way? Maybe not all the time, or even most of the time, but ideally, there was synchronicity and a lot of discussion, and, they work together.
Yeah. I mean, I always say, like, well, people will be, are you an exterior architect or an interior architect? And I said, it's all the same. I mean, it's like the outside and the inside. We're working together on everything as one, cohesive concept, and it's so important that, the architectural space is also designed by architects. I mean, that's kind of the way that I feel. And that was the way that I was trained to do the interiors and choose a lot of the interior finishes, and then it also, works with the exterior architecture.
Remind me the question.
How do you design the interiors of your project, or like work with people on the interiors?
Yeah, I think
of their
at this
project?
point in the role that I'm in, it's a role focused on the power of light and transforming space. And so a lot about light, I mean, there's the aesthetic portion, but there's also the mood and how it makes you feel. And so oftentimes the conversations are, what spaces do you admire most for how they make you feel? And then deducing, what are the elements of light that create that ambiance, that allow for that personalization, that flexibility, and that really elevate materiality. And so, I think we've all been to spaces that are poorly lit, and we just can't wait to get out of them. Oftentimes, convention centers. Oftentimes when we're in spaces that are beautifully lit, we don't notice. And that's okay, because I think, one of the things about lighting is, or even luxury, that oftentimes it's when you don't have to think about it, that it's a true luxury, right? And so light at its best, it's just a feeling and not a preoccupation and not a distraction. And so,
and what I've seen with people taking them into the different where you can change like the warmth and the colors and the Kelvin temperature of it is it, and some people are totally happy with, like, I mean, they'll look at something and they're like, oh yeah, it's fine, and I'm like, it's yellow, it's really yellow, And I mean, I think I was even with Cecilia one time when the person that was doing kind of the demonstration, they were like choosing, and they said, oh yeah, this is the ideal one. And I said, Cecilia, I think it's too yellow. And she goes, it is too yellow. So it's
ultimately, it's really personal too, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
It's how your eyes function.
Yeah.
It's how your brain processes color. Light levels. I need a ton of light because I'm blind as a bat. Other people don't. That bothers them, right? So what's too yellow for one person might be perfect for another, and that's okay. I think it's just having the flexibility to fine tune it and make it just right. And of course, if you're designing a large public space or commercial project, then you're designing for like the masses, and you're not going to those extremes.
Yeah, and then of course, safety or things like that.
Yeah.
So what recommendations do you have for working with interior designers on projects? With your firm, you have interior designers on staff. Yeah. So how do you work with?
Well, when there's an outside interior designer hired perhaps by the client, and we don't have, and we are just supporting them. We're just polite and as helpful as possible. I mean, why would we be anything else?
Yeah.
Eye rolling in the background, maybe.
Those are good words to live like, polite and helpful as possible, regardless of the situation.
And I guess like working on the concept, like if you're saying like, well, the concept was kind of this, so this is kind of what we would like the interiors to work.
We don't do that. We just let it
Just let it
Out of scope.
What about you?
I think interior designers are amazing collaborators, right? Because I think they care about not just the aesthetic, but the emotion of a space, which is important. I think with the interior designers, to have conversations early on is important, right? Not wait till you're past DD and then you start talking like technical infrastructure that you need to support a lighting system or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So early and often is good. I think too, it's like they're such tactile people that you can't just talk in abstract. They have to see it. And so whether that's going to showrooms together or bringing them to an experience center in the case of light, where you can be like, marinating in light, that's super critical. And then I think the third thing, and this is generally for everybody, it's like people want things simple. That on the back end, there might be a lot of infrastructure and whatever it might be, but the interface for the user and the kind of explanation to the interior designer needs to be macro. And then if you want to dial down, then you do. But I see that a lot in the profession, that people oftentimes get way too into the weeds and then they lose their audience and people say, I don't want this, or I don't want to follow that path. So I think simplicity is important.
Yeah.
And then being open also to customization. Everyone wants everything custom. So how can you customize? How can you personalize?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of good. I mean, I kind of it's interesting because I did kind of like this little charrette thing at this Valentine's Day event, and then and I was the only architect like with a team of all of these other. They're like, oh, well, what if it's like, go get it? No, I don't like that carpet sample. So I was like running over getting these carpets. What about this one? And I'm like, so they simple. And actually, like one of the things, so it's like, it was in one space, so those materials were the only things that were available, And meanwhile, the person's concept, she was an interior designer, she came up with the concept. She's like, oh yeah, I really want something red, and I had this like red shirt on, not this one, but another one. She goes, yeah, what I really need is like your top needs to be on this board. This is kind of this whole thing of the concept of the captain's table, where it's kind of. It's this book, and so it was interesting, like her take on it, but there was no red in the entire because that red or burgundy wasn't in, so it wasn't around, But we didn't use it.
Laurinda's a master at choosing beautiful reds. I've seen it in my own eyes.
So how did you both collaborate on the Design Miami Design Talks Theater this year?
Well, Cecilia luckily said she would help us with the lighting for the talk space, which was key. And when I think back on the space, the only reason people liked it, truthfully, is the lighting, because the lighting created the mood for the space, and the mood was everything. And it wasn't anything else but that. I really honestly believe it was all lighting and nothing of us.
I disagree, but
Okay. And I do want to say that I had a personal epiphany because when I went to their lighting loft in Miami,
Yes.
and had the show and tell, I realized that they had the dumbest ever lighting fixtures from Kmart or whatever. It did not matter because it was the light quality that created the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to heck with fine design light fixtures. So, you can specify one from $30 from Home Depot. It'll do just fine as long as it can have a Ketra bulb.
I know, it really does. And the one video when they show all of these different qualities of light. I mean, that video is just like you can feel the emotion, and just the emotional, of this whole of all of this light, like just going through. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of like if we can. Bottle that product or whatever. Like, here it is,
Well, they got it.
Yeah, exactly.
If they did this concourse in front of us and it were all lit with the Ketra bulbs and they had 4 vignettes for the day, it would be fabulous in here. You'd want to stay here.
exactly. And we would all look better on camera too. So.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the design Miami, that had burgundy in it, didn't? Did it have reds and burgundies? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to just share how special the design was from Laurinda's team and
But you
Laurinda
showed me
because
the photos.
it was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So because she wasn't going to toot her own horn, and I will do it for you. But it was this really beautiful, warm space where I think the star of it was these gorgeous ripple benches that you designed. And there were these undulating benches that were, correct me if I'm wrong, probably like 30 feet long and 5 or 6 rows of them. And the textiles used were different for different segments, but all in these beautiful shades of reds. Mm-hmm. And then you wrap that in a space with like the Alchemist red paint, which is, mineral based and just really of the earth. And then with these beautiful kind of projections on the wall, giving a nod to Vitruvius. So aesthetically, it was stunning. Conceptually, it was beautiful. And then when it came to the light, is how do you animate that space and bring additional meaning to it? And so we talked about having different scenes that really spoke to the place of Miami, and how do we do kind of a homage to air, to earth, to fire, to water, and how does that then energize the space through light? And so, for the fire scene, always like very tastefully done, right? Because you don't want to turn it into Las Vegas, but using shades of deep gold and red, in a very slow fade rate that kind of enlivens the space, right? Or in air, it's a much cooler, brighter color temperature. Or in water, you play with different shades of white and create these ripples of light along the benches. And then, of course, using kind of control of beam angles to bring forth the curvature of the benches and letting the divots go into recess. So ultimately, it was such a fabulous project to collaborate on because it was pared down. It wasn't like a ginormous space. It was simple as far as, a lot of the projects that you do go. But it was special and it felt cozy and it felt right. And people wanted to go there and see the talks, not just for the program, but because they wanted to go see Laurinda's space. Mm-hmm. And that's really, you can't get much better than that, right? Like that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. And I'll put photos in the blog that accompanies the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you navigate your work-life balance?
Multitask all the time. There's no other way to do it. I have a lot of, different things to do on a daily basis that one has nothing to do with the other.
And Laurinda has 6 children.
7.
7. Oh, we have 7. Yeah, 7. Yes, and then grandchildren. How many grandchildren do you have? 7.
Are you a to-do list person or more of a calendar outlook person? Or
I make do lists all over the place, and the computer, on my phone, on paper, and I never look at them. I just have all these to-do lists floating around.
I'm the same way. I might like do the top 2, and then all of a sudden I look at another to-do list like 3 months later. I'm like, oh, wait a second, that same item is on the to-do list 3 months later.
That's funny. I I fly a lot for business, and honestly, that flight time is the best way to get on top of things and stay organized, because it's just quiet time where no one's pinging you, and you can hyper focus and just get things done. So it's, you juggle a lot, but if you can carve out time, like flying time, I find that highly invaluable. It's necessary.
And anything else about work-life balance?
That's a great question. Just do what you love. The minute it stops being joyful, then you've lost balance, I guess. I don't think it's a matter of hours necessarily, but it's a matter of how it fills you. And the minute that it starts feeling like you've lost joy in something, then the balance is out of whack and you have to reassess priorities.
Yeah. I always find that, if you go to therapy, they'll say like, go start eliminating the things that you don't really like. And I think for me, I was like, but it's like I have to do these certain things. And it's so difficult for me to say like, okay, I don't have to do this. Mm-hmm. Like, just get that out, And so when I turned 60, I was like, I'm not going to volunteer anymore. So that was like, and of course, once I stepped down off of a board, people were saying, oh, well, there's this other board. And I'm like, no, because I said when I turned 60, I wasn't going to be volunteering on any more boards or volunteering for anything else. They're like, okay. Like,
how's it felt?
It feels good. It feels good. I think it, because I volunteered all my life.
Right.
You volunteer all your life, and so I think it's good. And I think I always kind of took on the mom role of kind of things, yeah. So, and didn't feel like I could really do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, So I think that me stepping down off the not having, to like herd people or kind of like make sure that other people have gotten their work done or done things or picked up the slack in those things, it's kind of given me more time to do the things that I really like to do.
Yeah. It's funny that say when you turn 60, you stop volunteering. When I turned 40, I discovered the power of no. Because I used to say yes to everything. Yes. And then I said to myself, what if I start saying no? And it feels so empowering.
Yeah.
Not to everything, but
yeah,
good one to have in your back pocket.
Yeah. So what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
I think we need architects. We need people who can look at our cities as a whole. Today in Orlando, it was so apparent that this whole place is designed without us people in mind. It's like somehow you have to be in a car or something else than walking around. So architects have to have really a macro view of the earth and try to instill in everyone sort of stewardship for our natural environment and care about how we do things, how much we use, what sustainable choices we make. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an emergency, and architects should be on the forefront of that emergency.
Yeah. No, we really should. Yeah. And then there's so many things that are like, they're consumable items, and I mean, you go and people want to rip everything out and that, right? Like people will say, oh, should I redo my kitchen in order to sell it? And I'm like, you know what? You're going to redo your kitchen, and a month later, I'm going to see somebody ripping all that stuff out and throwing it in the dump. So just like leave it the way, try to work with what you have, and we have to think about these as far as sustainability. Instead of ripping out everything and throwing it away and, starting new all the time.
I think the concept that you laid out of just being a steward of what's been gifted to us, this world, this land, is such an important one, because it's ours to celebrate and to take care of and to nurture. But if we don't pay adequate attention, then, we can also cause great harm. So as architects, the profession is about designing and building space. That doesn't necessarily always mean just more building.
Yeah. And we're designing space for people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in order to sustain the population, we need to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Free topic.
Yes, free
Okay.
topic.
I think something that interests me personally now is the fact that my oldest daughter, is teaching architecture on the high school level. And it is really important that everybody have the education of an architect and is able to see the environment, I think. And I think it would create a world that was much more thoughtful, clients who were able to see what we are talking about. If you're not educated about it in any way, shape, or form, which nobody ever is, if it isn't in your primary education or your high school education, you have no idea how to really understand the built environment in a way that makes sense. And so I think there's an education component that we're missing out on in the early years to give everybody kind of a baseline of how to live and build and design on planet Earth.
Yeah. I used to go into the classroom for my kids and do like a city building project, and we would use, we'd do like trash cities, and I also did it for, one of the community groups, the arts groups, and so we would do, I'd draw a big map on the floor, and then they would take all of their trash and make things out of it, and I said, and a lot of times they didn't even realize that it was our city, and I said, yeah, this is the downtown La Mesa area right here, these are, and they were just envisioning things. And years later, I would see the kids in the grocery store or something, and they'd say, oh, yeah, I can remember when you did that. And I was like, really? Because for us, it's just like, oh, yeah, that was just like a couple hours. But for them, they took that into the rest of their life, or some of my daughter's friends, she said, oh, I wanted to go into engineering because I knew that Kelly's parents were architects and we had met you, and, you kind of had talked about it and everything. And that's the reason why, and she works in Hawaii, she works like all over for it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's not just the exposure, but also the positive reinforcement, right? Because all you need is one champion to say, like, hey, you might have a future in this, or you're really good at this. And then that might just spur the person to go pursue that career. That's important. And I think on the topic of education, I think I'm pretty verbal about, I think in the master's education and master's of architecture, that it's important that we showcase to students like how many different avenues there are in the architectural world that lead to fulfilling careers. Because oftentimes students, especially in the top schools, are told your career path is to be the next Stephen Hole or the next Frank Gehry, and that's it, right?
And that's like the top 10 or 5%. I mean, that's the top 10 or 5%, or 10, not the top 10 necessarily, but but like it's only 5 to 10% of the profession are designers. Only, and only 5 to 10% of what we do is actually
pursue that
path.
And I think for me, it's like it's not a top. It's one segment of the profession, but you need other people who do infrastructural work and who do whatever it might be. You need interior designers, you need lighting designers, you need acoustic engineers, you need good people in the manufacturing base to support architects, because if you have a lack of talent there, then, things don't hold together. So I think just making sure that people understand that architectural education is amazing for so many different things. If you choose the Stephen Hole path, like, great, that's awesome. But there's so many other fulfilling paths to explore.
Yeah. And I think some people, they might graduate, go into a thing, and then, architecture is kind of different, but there is some like niche for them. They can still say in architecture, but they don't, they don't always have to be in, the typical firm or corporate firm, or a small firm. It can be something that's totally different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurinda.
Laurinda. Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you so much for being a guest on I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before podcast.